Right, so for this example, repeating myself a bit now that I've started recording, for this example I'll be doing the strategy pattern and the two graphs patterns, low coupling and high cohesion. It's a bit of a misnomer to say that these are only graph patterns. They are basic object-oriented principles. It's just that they happen to be listed in the list of graph patterns as well. So, what kind of system do I want to build here? I'd like to build a part of a game where you are, let's say, a wizard's apprentice and you want to be able to cast spells. And I'm going to use the strategy pattern for the different spells. So, something like that. And a class diagram for this. What should I call it? Something like that. Right. Let's see, we have, if you remember the strategy pattern, we have one class that is the context or the owner of the strategy pattern. So that'll be the wizard's apprentice. And then we will have the strategy pattern itself, which will be one abstract class, which is the interface for the whole strategy pattern. So let's put that one down. And how are we going to do this one? Let's say we have a few methods as well. We could throw them in. And of course we need before I forget it, I keep forgetting this relationship. So of course apprentice need to have a relationship to the spells. An arbitrary number of spell, like that. So what methods do we need? Well, we need to have, of course, the cast, a method to cast the spell, like so. And when we do this, the point is that we'll find the spell with the appropriate name, and then we will execute that strategy. So of course, for the spell, we need to have a few things as well. We need to have the actual cast. And what else do we need? Well, we can practice it. And that should be the basics, and then we can have our different spells, just to throw in a few, just so we have something to play around with. We might have one spell, another one, and the third one just for the sake of it. See what we have. Okay, so this is the strategy pattern. This is the core of it. So we have the owner of the different spells in this case, the different concrete strategies. That's the apprentice class in this case. We have the abstract strategy, which is basically just the interface. So any concrete strategy that's part of this this abstract strategy group must have the methods cast and practice. So all of these three down here, these three specific spells, they have both a cast method and a practice method. So this would be the basics of the strategy pattern, but let's embellish this a bit just because it's fun and because we would like to have a slightly more complete system. Of course, as an apprentice, we can't do anything unless we have a wand, so let's throw in that one as well. And that one is, well, it's just a catalyst, like in chemistry. You can cast a spell without one, but it'll help you to cast a spell if you've got that one. And what do we do with this one? We cast things. How do we know that we're allowed to cast the spell with this wand? Well, we throw in a key, of course. And then we need to have, of course, a private key as well. I'm going to use, let's use the same syntax everywhere. And of course, if I've got a private key and a public key, then of course as an apprentice, I need to have a public key as well. Otherwise, how am I going to send that to my wand? And let's make the spells a bit more tricky to get at as well. Let's say that you will use the public key and the spell to cast, and you will calculate some sort of hash number. And that's how you know that you can cast it or not. So let's try in something like that. And let's see, we've got something to match it again against as well. So now what we need to do is we need to add a few relationships more. So the apprentice will have a wand. And the spell will also require a wand. These are simple spells, so you only need one wand. Let's do this like that. Okay, so we've got a wand now, and we need to have that involved. So we use the wand to cast a spell, and the spell will go ahead and do it with the right strategy. This wasn't strictly necessary for the strategy pattern, but this is just because we want to make a more complete system. Let's describe our classes based on this. We have, of course, the apprentice. Who is the context in the strategy pattern. Let's see. What else? We've got the wand. Spell. Spell is the abstract strategy. And it contains all the methods, it provides the interface that all concrete spells must implement. And then we have the different concrete spells. So there we have it. That's the extent of the part of the system that we decide to model for this in this case. And then next step is to describe in pseudocode the different methods that are of relevance for the how we are using the abstract strategy pattern. So let's define a few methods here. Let's do it in C++ this time. So the apprentice, when we create that one, so this will be when we first create our apprentice, we will have some sort of a set of known spells. It'll be a very short list, but all the spells that we know how to do, we will create here. So there, something like that. So that's the only spell that we will know how to execute when we start out as apprentice. We get to pick locks the first thing we do. That's good. And the only other method we can do something with is the cast method. So let's do something with that one. There, and what do we need to do then? Oh, first of all, we get the name. So we need to find the spell. Like that. This, of course, won't work in reality because this is probably one of those built-in list types, and find won't work like that. But for the sake of explaining how we're going to use the strategy pattern, this works. This is, after all, pseudocode just for that reason, that we can be lazy and we can express in code-ish syntax what we're looking for. And once we've got that spell, we need a name for it. Once we've got a spell, what do we do? Well, we use our wand to cast it. And we throw in our public key to that. There. And as I said before, we didn't need the wand to implement our strategy pattern, but we're doing it anyway, just for the sake of it. Since we are now delegating to the wand to actually cast the spell, then we need to implement that method as well. And then we got a spell. And then a public key. And what can we do with this one? Again, this is since this isn't really part of the strategy pattern, we can have some fun. And I've got a weird sense of what's fun, but that's just me. Probably need a spell there as well, right? So we create some sort of hash key for this one, and then we cast it. And the last thing that we need to implement now, so now we have all the um, things around the actual casting of the spell, so we know that we can create a spell. This is done in the Apprentice class. That's what we are explaining over here. Um, when we cast, we explain what's going on. That first we find the spell in our list, and then we make sure that it gets cast somehow. In this case, we make use of our wand um, to actually cast the spell, and this one and the wand does a bit of magic, and pun intended, and uh, then we delegate to the actual concrete strategy, which is the last bit that we need to implement now. So the actual concrete strategy that is going to cast the actual spell. And what do we do here? We do well. We do a bit of few things. We'll do a few things here. So first bit is to match the sum, the MD5 sum that we got with our correct one. And then, if it's correct, let's do the actual spell. And if it's not correct, then let's have some horrible consequences of getting the spell wrong. And that's it. So now we follow the chain from everywhere from when we create a strategy to when we are going to use it. We find it, we get a bit of help, and then we say that here is in one of the concrete strategies we implement what's going on. We actually don't implement it, we just write in comments what we want to do here, and that's okay, because by saying that this method is involved, you have indicated that this is involved, but I'm not expecting you to actually implement the system that you're describing. You're just doing the stubs of it. So the important mechanisms for the design pattern is there, and anything else can be expressed in terms of comments or something like that. So next bit is to take the two grass patterns. Let's go up here and then just tidy up a bit. So we had those two grass patterns, right? And how do strategy pattern use these two patterns, low coupling and high cohesion? Uh, well, we can describe then that by only having a connection to the abstract strategy spell, we get lower coupling from Apprentice. So, or from the context class. The context class only knows about the abstract strategy, so it's low coupled there. The fact that we don't have to be aware of which strategy, once we've created these different strategies and added them to our list of concrete strategies, we don't have to worry about them anymore. We just deal with the objects that we have, knowing that they are of the abstract strategy type. So we are not directly connected to any of the concrete strategies. So that's the low coupling bit. High cohesion, well, each class in the strategy pattern has a very well-defined responsibility. So the context class is responsible for knowing uh, what is the current strategy and what strategies exist. That's about it. Um, doesn't even have to know exactly what the current strategy is, just that it's got a pointer to the current strategy. Um, the abstract strategy has one responsibility, and that is to provide the interface, and that's all. And the concrete strategies doesn't have to know anything about where they are being used, how they are being used, or anything like that. All they know is how to be the best of that concrete strategy that they can. So if I take Stupefy, for example, this one concrete strategy, it doesn't know anything about how it's being used, what wand is being used, or what a spell is, or anything like that. It just knows how to be the world's best Stupefy spell. So that's how how the strategy pattern uses these two principles of low coupling and high cohesion. Let's write something about that. Um, what else? The concrete strategies don't need to know anything either, so they are completely disconnected from anything else. That's also low coupling. And so on. We can go through each of the classes and we can look at them. Why is this an example of low coupling? High cohesion. So the context class has only got a pointer to the current strategy and knows about the available strategies. The abstract strategy class only knows about the interface. all of this contributes to high cohesion. All right, last bit. This is going faster than I expected. But the last bit is then to how are we using it, these patterns? Well, as in the discussion, so we follow these principles. And in addition, what do we do? Well, we delegate matching keys and doing all the actual magic, if you will, into the wand. So we delegate all of that to the wand class, which keeps the apprentice class, the responsibilities for the apprentice class simple. And this we do to continue to ensure high cohesion. Right. And that's it, really. That's how you take 6 long books and then turn it into a half-hour lecture. Any questions on this? Are you still awake? Okay, so I'll do it like this. I'll pause the recording now, and then I'll open up for questions for a while, and then we'll see where we go from there.